Hi everyone, my name is Dina. Today I'm back with another video showing you how to make the necklace portion of my Thoughts of Spring set. So it is a set, so we'll also have videos out for the earrings as well as a ring. So if you're not sure of what supplies to get, go down to that show more button down below the video, and it will have a list of your supplies that you can gather up as well as a bead on it board, and then meet me back and I'll show you that first step.
All right, so now that we have all of our items all out on our bead mat, because you're going to pretty much need just about everything right off the bat. I've only got 6 of my RounTrios out. I've got the other 6 sitting off to the side, because we're only going to need 6 for the first couple of parts of this. We'll add the other 6 here later. So I've got all the other beads out, because eventually we're going to need all of these. First thing you're going to start off with is just a comfortable length of thread. When I did my sample in the pink here, I used probably about 10 feet of thread. But with that sample, sometimes I typically will go through beads a couple of times sometimes, and so I may use a little bit more thread than what we typically really actually need. So just start off with a comfortable length, because you'll end up having to add some thread at the end, more than likely. So first thing you want to make sure is that all your holes in your RounTrios are clear. So I don't know if you can see, if I can move it to where you can see down the bead. There we go. Now you can see down the bead. So you want to make sure that all 3 holes are clear on all your beads before you start. So after you get that done, we want to go through the center hole of the RounTrio. Then we're going to pick whichever 15-0 that we want to use. I'm going to use the darker color or the second color of the 15s. And then I'm going to add another RounTrio with a 15 until I have all 6 of my RounTrios and my 15s on my thread. And of course, everything is bouncing around on me today. Okay, so since we started with the RounTrio, we need to end with a 15. So now that is what you should have on your thread. So go ahead and pull this all the way down to the end. Just leave yourself a little bit of room so you can tie a knot, because that's what we'll do now. Tie a knot this way, go through that way. Just make sure you're not tying the knot around that 15-0. Just be careful with it. Just take it slowly, and then you'll get yourself a little circle like this. So let's go ahead and get ourselves set up to where we can start working on the inner portion of our pendant first. So go back through the RounTrio that you're sitting next to. Make sure it's the middle hole. Almost knocked my water over, sorry. That's where the jump came from. So make sure it's the middle hole. Now you want to jump down into the inner hole down here. So you go through that inner hole, and then that gets you set up for the next step. So I'll let you get caught up with that, and I'll meet you back and show that second step.
Want a monthly dose of inspiration while stocking up on your beading supplies? PotomacBeads Treasure Box is a monthly subscription where you can save up to 60% off new and exciting materials. Every month, you'll receive an assortment of unique and exclusive beads in a variety of colors and shapes. Whether you're a beginner or an accomplished beader, the Treasure Box will inspire you to create unique projects for yourself and to gift to others. Unleash your creativity with a Treasure Box subscription. Visit PotomacBeads.com/subscriptions today, or click on the link below in the description to get links to get back to our website.
Okay, so now we are to that point where we can start our second step. So on the second part, I'm going to go ahead and use the same color of the 15s. I'm going to use the darker color. And all we're doing here is very simple. Just pick up a 15 and then go through one of the bottom holes of the next RounTrio until we have all of our RounTrios connected with 15s in between. So we're going to have a 15 going through that bottom hole. And basically 2 holes. We'll have one going through the middle, one going through one of the outer holes. So after we get these in here, then we're going to add some extra beads on the inner portion of this to make it look more like the center of a sunflower. All right, so now I'm coming through that last round trio, and I went ahead and went through that very first 15 that I added to. And that's where you will need to go. All right, so I'm coming out of that 15. Now we're going to add a series of beads. I'm going to add 3 15s, one of my darker or my first color of 11-Os, and then 3 more 15s. And then since I'm coming out of the right-hand side of this 15, I'm going to go through the next 15 in line, which is on a clockwise direction, so the one that's on the right. And just go through there. Now, the first 2 15s that we added, both on this side on the left and then this side on the right, we're going to share each time we add beads. So I'm coming out of the right-hand side of this 15 in the circle portion. I'm going to go back down the second, or that first and that second 15 that we added at the end. So just those first 2. And then when you pull that tight, that's how you're going to end up sharing those 2 beads in the center. So now this is how you're going to add everything until we get back to the end on this side. We're going to add 1 15, one of our first color of 11-Os, and then 3 more 15s. So I have a 15, 11, and 3 15s. And then you're going to go through the next 15 in line. So go through that one, going from the left to the right. To get yourself set up for the next portion, or the next set of beads, we're going to go down those 2 beads, those last 2 beads that we added. So we're going down bead number 1 and bead number 2. And when you pull that together, then it looks like that. So that's what this section is. So again, we're going to pick up 1 15, 1 11, then 3 more 15s.
Good.
So then we're going to go through the next 15 in the circle, going from the left to the right, and then go down those last 2 15s, or the first 2 that are sitting there, to share it for the next section. I'm just going to go ahead and finish this part out because it's pretty quick. I'll just go a little bit faster this time until we get to around back to the beginning, because the beginning we're going to be sharing the beads that are already sitting there too, so you don't have to add as many beads. So cut. Oh, yep, we're already there. Okay. Oh no, we're not. I still have to add one. Never mind. Stop. Go through this guy. Go through this. Go back down these 2 beads. Maybe. Of course, I'm recording and it does not want to work right. Okay. So now we're back to the beginning. So now you just went down those first 2 beads off here to the right or to the left. So all we need to add on this portion is just, excuse me, 1 15, 11, and then 1 15. So this last portion, that's all you have to add. And then we're going to go up these first 2 beads, starting with bead number 2, then going through bead number 1 from the very first section that we added. So that way we share this section as well. So you go back up those 2 beads, and then when you pull tight with that, then you have something that looks kind of like this, which looks a little messy, but we'll fix it on the next step. So go ahead and get to that part and then meet me back, and then I'll show you the second step here for the center. Okay, so starting off where we left off, we're coming out of that first bead here on that first section. What we need to do is we need to get back down to one of the 11-ohs. So to do that, go through the 15 in the circle portion, the 15 that was going through the bottom hole of the RounTrios from the left to the right again. So that way we finish off this portion of that stitch from the last step. Not getting my needle twisted in my thread. And then all you have to do is just go back down those first 3 15s and then come out of the 11-oh that's there. So that was the first 3 15s that we added on the first portion of the last step. And you want to be coming out at the 11-oh. I'm going to use the same color of the 15s. You can change up colors if you want to at any point, especially if it's looking a little confusing as to which 15 and which color bead that you need to go through. So I add a 15, and then in a clockwise direction or going to the right, I'm going to go through the next 11 in lines. And then do the same thing, add a 15, go through the next 11, until you have 6 of your 15s added in between each of your 11s. I think that was number 4. I think I got 2 more to add. Yep. Got 2 more 11s to go through. So that one. And add this last one, because there's already a 15 sitting there. So I'm going to go through the 15 and come back out the 11 one more time. So that's the first 11 that we went through with our 15s. So now we have 15s in between our 11s. So I'm coming out that 11. We're going to add another 15 to this section by square stitching it on. So to square stitch, I'm coming out of the 11 in the way that it's sitting right now. I'm coming out the top side of this 11. I'm going to go to the bottom side of this 11 and go straight through in the same direction. And then that is going to square stitch that 15, basically sitting on top of the 11-oh right now. Go ahead and proceed through the 15 that we added just a minute ago into the next 11, and then do the same thing. Square stitch on another 15. And then we do this until we have 6 of these added. And if you're able to get through the beads like I just did in one swoop, it makes it a little bit quicker. But if you're not, or if you're not exactly sure where you're supposed to be going, then just take your time. Go through one bead at a time if you need to. Okay, it is not going to be the end of the world. Oh, and look at that, I added 2 beads there. Okay, so we'll just play with it. There's going to be 2 beads sitting there. Oops. Apparently there's 2 on my thread, and I did not see it. But I'm going to leave it there, because things don't always have to be perfect. So I have 1 more 15 now to add. And then I will show you the last portion of this part of the step, and we will move on to the next. So I'm continuing through that first 11-oh, the first one that we added the square stitch the 15 onto. Now I'm going to go through the 15 that we just added on that first one. So now I'm stitching in a counterclockwise direction. So on this part, all we're doing is just connecting all the 15s together. So we've got all 6 of these 15s that we just need to connect. Then that brings everything together. Okay, that 15's a little tight. There we go. We'll bring everything together here in the center. So when you go back through that original 15 again, then you have what looks to be the center of your flower. So now I'm just going back through these just one more time, just a couple of times. I mean, you don't have to go all the way around if you don't want to. It just kind of tightens it up a little bit, makes it look a little nicer. Because I've got that 115 that's being a little difficult. So I may not be able to do this very much. And 115 is a little small, so I'll just quit right there while I'm ahead so I don't accidentally break a bead. So then that would be what your center is going to look like. So it kind of puffs out a little bit, like that. So go ahead and get that part done, and then I will show you how to get to the outer edge so we can start working on the petals. Okay, so now we are caught up. My thread is coming out of the left-hand side of one of the 15-ohs that we square stitched onto the 11-oh. So to get to the outer edge over here, what we need to do is follow your thread path through that 11-oh. So just go from the left to the right through the 11-oh of whatever 15 that you're coming out of currently. And then I'm going to go through the 15 that's sitting to the right of that 11-oh. We're going to go back up the two 15s that we were sharing when we started making the center portion of this. So go back up those two 15s.
What has you
And
as like the
what we'll need to do
grab
is make sure we go through this center portion 15 that is hooked onto the inner hole of the RounTrios. We want to go through that from the right to the left. And I'm actually going through that RounTrio at the same time, which is okay because that's where you need to go. And then we're going to change directions again. We're going to go through the center hole of that RounTrio. And then this is where my knot is at, so I may have to kind of finagle it a little bit to make sure that I don't break the bead. And then go through that center hole, like that. And then now you should be coming out of your center hole of one of your RounTrios. To get started for the next section, we want to continue through that 15, which is in the original 15 row that we did at the very, very beginning. And now we're set up to start our next round. To do our next round, we're going to be doing odd count circular peyote, which is actually going to be pretty easy. So I promise it'll be easy, so just stay tuned. So we're going to add a 15 first. We're coming out of that 15. We want to jump through the outermost hole of that RounTrio just to the right. Now we're going to start our stitch for the odd count peyote. For this, I'm going to pick up 2 of my first color of 15s, 3 of my second color, 7 of my third, 6, 7, and 3 of my second color, and then 2 of my first 8. So I have 17 beads on here. I have 2 of the first, 3 of the second, 7 of the third, 3 of the second, and 2 of the first again. So we're coming out of the right-hand side of that RounTrio. We're going to go through that outer hole again, going from the left to the right again, to make a little loop. And so now you have the loop. Now don't forget this step. This step makes the odd count circular peyote so much easier. Don't forget to go through that first bead. If you forget to do that, then things don't work out as easily. So there's that. So now in the second round of the peyote stitch, we're going to pick up 1 of our first color. We're coming out of that first bead. We're coming out of the first bead that's down there. In peyote, you always skip that second bead and then you go through the next one. So in this case, it's going to be the first one of the second color. And then when you pull tight, that puts that bead that you just added, my tension's a little bad, but that puts that bead that you just added on top of the bead in the original round. So now we're going to add our next one, which is going to be one of our second color. So we're coming out of this one. We're going to skip the second one, second bead, and then we're going to go through the third bead. Just like that. We're going to now add 4 of our third color. So do the same thing. So we add one of those. And then number 2. Then number 3. And then number 4. Now we're coming out of that first, or that next of the second set of beads, second color. So I'm going to add another one of my second colors and put one of those along the edge. And then we're going to end by adding one of our first color beads again. Now on this portion, you're going to go through that last seed bead because you're skipping the one and then you go through the next bead. If you can get through the round trio right away, perfectly fine. Go ahead and go through the round trio. If you don't, just do one bead at a time. And now you have done odd count circular peyote, which made it really, really easy. So this next step, to finish off this petal, we're going to go back through that first bead again. So don't forget to go through that first seed bead, which is always going to be your first color seed beads. And then we want to step up by going through the bead that we just added on this last section. Now in this part, we're going to add our 8-O's in. So this part, I'm going to pick up one of the darker color 15s that I have and an 8-O. I'm going to go through, I'm coming out of that first sticking out bead. This is the next one that's sticking out, so I'm going to go through that. The next one is going to be my first color of 15s plus an 8. So it's a little bit brighter of a color. Go through the next sticky out bead. We're going to do that one more time. So the first color of the 15s and an 8. Go through the next one. Now on this section, or this little portion, we're just going to add an 8. So add your 8. And then on this last part, we're just going to be adding beads that are opposite of what we did over here. So instead of adding the 15 first, we're going to add the 8 first. And I did 2 rounds of the 8 in the first color of 15. So we're going to add that first one here. So then add an 8 and the first color of 15 again. And then the last section is an 8 and the second color of 15. And then you go back through that sticky out bead from the last part or the third round of your peyote. So go through that. To get set up for the next petal, you want to go back through that very last bead there. Don't forget to go back through that last bead. Go back through your round trio in the outer hole again. And then now you have to add your second color of your 15s. And this is basically just to cover up some thread. So add a 15, and then you go through the 15 that's sitting there, which is the original 15 that we started off with. The rounds. Oh, we added the round trios and the 15s. And then that finishes off the petal. So to get started for your next petal, don't forget to add another 15 because you need to get to this outer hole of the next round trio. So you add your 15, go through the outer hole of the next round trio, and now you're set up to add your 17 beads again. So if you need to, go ahead and rewind this section and get back to the petal part and redo your or do all your petals around. I'll meet you back when I'm almost done with the 6th petal to show you how to get started for the next section. All right, so when you have most of your petals done, you should look something similar to this. Just take your time on that last petal because everything is starting to get kind of a little jumbled together, just like any other type of flower petals. A lot of them overlap, so it's perfectly fine if they start overlapping. but I'm down now to where I'm adding my last 8-0 and the 15-0 in the peyote stitch. So I'm going to go back through that last 11-0 sitting there in the peyote. And again, just take your time when you get to this spot, because your thread is going to be wrapping around some of the beads and some of the petals. Just take your time with it, and you can move some of the petals out of the way if you need to, like that or something, just to kind of get to your beads. So now, to continue finishing this petal, we need to go back through that last seed bead again, that last 11-0. Continue through the round trio if you can, or just take it one thing at a time if it won't go. And then don't forget to add your last 15 to complete the front side of your petal. So add your 15 and then go through that original 15 down here from the original step, or from the first step. And now you have a complete first part of your pendant. So now what do we do to add in our other round trios? Because these come in next now. So we're coming out of that middle 15. We want to go through the next 15 on the right. So we're just following our thread path, which was through that 15. And then you can go ahead and go through the round trio. Now, I would suggest to flip, when you're going through the round trio, to flip everything to the back. It's going to be much easier to understand what's going on if you flip your product to the back and go in this direction. Now, to add your new round trios, we're going to pick up 3 of color number 1 of our 11s. We're going to pick up a round trio going through the middle hole again, so just like we did in the first step, and then 3 more 11s of the original or the first color of your 11s. So we're coming out of the left-hand side of this round trio. We're now just going to go straight over to the round trio on the left, just making sure you're going through that upper hole. So the outermost hole of the round trio. And then it should sit, after you kind of play with it for a second, they should sit something like that along the back. Of course, it's a little loose right now, which is fine, because we'll end up adding more rounds to it, so it'll tighten up over time. So to refresh that one just real quick, we're adding 3 11s, the next round trio through the center hole, and then 3 more 11s. We're coming out of this round trio on the left-hand side in the upper hole. We're going to go through the upper hole of the round trio on the left. Like that. And then when you pull tight, just do it ever so slightly, because things are going to wrap around again. So just take your time with it. And then you have your round trio sitting like that. So go ahead and finish the rest of those 4 round trios, and then I'll meet you back and show you the next step. All right, so when you have all of your round trios put back together again, it should look something like this, which is kind of a jumbled mess. I've got it really close up to the camera so that way you can see where my thread is coming out, which is right here at the top of the last round trio that we added in that top row. So we're going to continue through the 3 seed beads that we added on this last stitch. Try and get through that 3rd one. There we go. So continue through those 3 seed beads. Go through that middle hole again. And what we're going to do is go through and jump down to one of the outer holes, so we can connect it all together so it's easier to do the petals on this side. So just round your thread out like this and then go through that outer hole. And then this portion is pretty simple. Just pick up an 8-0, go through the next outer hole of the next round trio. Pick up an 8-0, go through the next outer hole of the next round trio, and so on. Now on this part, you probably want to go through your beads one more time, just to kind of strengthen this portion of it. And then after you get done with that, I won't make you watch me go through my beads twice, but I will do that at least once or twice, and I'm getting kind of low on thread, so I may have to add some thread as well. But just continue on. You'll be wanting to come out through one of your round trios at the end. Just make sure you're going through that outer hole.
Oops.
And still getting caught. There we go. So once I go through this one about, one more time, sometimes two, it just depends on how loose it is and how loose your tension is and everything. So go through it at least one more time, sometimes two, come out of one of your round trios. Like I said, I'm going to have to add a little bit of thread, and then I'll meet you back and show you the next step to start your next petals on the back. Okay, so when you get your ring reinforced a couple of times, your thread should be coming out of that round trio in the bottom hole of the round trio. To get started to add your petals, we need to go through the middle hole of that same round trio. We're going to get yourself back out to that outer hole eventually. And if you remember correctly, that the 3 seed beads are connected in that spot. So go down your 3 11-ohs that were used to connect the round trios to the back. Now we need to get to these 3 seed beads here. Now you can do this in a couple of different ways. You can go ahead and go back through the original round trio, the outer edge, and then come back out if you want to do it that way. I chose to go ahead and add a little bit extra. So I'm adding 3 15 ohs in my darker color, or my second color. And I'm coming out of these 3 11s. I'm going to go down the 3 11s on the left. Just like that. And then that just leaves a little extra to where you can see just a little bit more color on the front. Just to add a little bit more to the flower look. So now we're coming out of the 3 11-ohs on the left. This is where we want to jump to the outer hole of the next round trio to the left of that. And then this is where we will start adding our next petal. So that's how you get to the outer hole of that one. Now the petals on the back of the pendant are going to be a little bit bigger than the petals on the front of the pendant. The front we used 17 beads in the original circle. On the back we're going to use 19. Now the only difference is that you're going to add 1 extra of your middle color or your second color of your 11-ohs on either side of the third color. I'll explain. So it's 2 of your first. Now we're doing 4 instead of 3. So 4 of your second. Still 7 of your third color. And then we're going to do 4 again of your second. And then 2 of your first. And then that gives you 19 beads. So 2 of the first, 4 of the second, 7 of the third, 4 of the second, and 2 of the first again. And we do this petal pretty pretty much the same. I can't say the other word right now. Pretty much the same as what we did in the first petal. So just round out your 19 beads to create a loop. Just like that. Now don't forget, same thing as the first petal on the first side, or the front side, we want to go through that first seed bead. So don't forget to go through that first 11-oh. And then on this round of peyote, we're going to add 1 of our first color.
What?
Then we're going to add 1 of the second color. We're going to add a second of the second color. Yeah, it's kind of difficult for me to do peyote stitch in this direction, so you can bear with me for a second while I try to get the needle to work with me. And then we're going to start adding the third color. So this is number 1. And number 2. And number 3. And then I think we start adding this color again. Let's see, it'll be 1, 2, yep, that's right. So we add the second color now. We'll add 2 of the second color. And then this is the second of my second color. And then our last bead to add on this portion of the peyote stitch is going to be 1 of our first color again. And just like the first round, go through that last seed bead. Don't forget to do that. And then go through your RounTrio again. And come out the other side. Now the 4th round of this peyote, don't forget to go through that first seed bead again. And then step up to the 3rd round, the 3rd row. We're going to be adding our 15s and the 8s just like we did on the front. So this one is going to be a 15 of the second color and an 8. Go through the next sticky out of the peyote stitch. And then we're going to add 1 of the first color 15s and an 8. So this portion is basically the same as the front petals. The only thing different is going to be the amount of 8s that we do in the center. So I'm picking up another first color of the 15 and the 8. Now in the front petals, we did only 1 single 8 in the center here. We're actually going to do 2. So just pick up 1 at a time and go through the next sticky outie. And then pick up a second 8 and then go through the next one. And then this other side of the petal is just like what we did on the front, where we do the opposite, where you pick up an 8 now and then a 15. So that way the either side of the petal kind of mirrors each other. And then an 8 and a 15. And then I end with an 8 and then the 15 of the darker or the second color. And then I'll get you set up to start your next petal. And then I'll let you go to finish your petal off. So we're going through that last peyote bead. Don't forget to go through the very first bead there. And then if you can, go ahead and go through your RounTrio. And then as if you remember, we started off this round by going through those 3 beads that were used to connect the second or the back part of the RounTrios. So go through those 3 beads and just do the same thing that you did, whether you went through the upper hole of the original RounTrio or if you added the 3 15s like I did to give it a little bit more color. And then go back down the 3 seed beads on the left. And then this is where you now jump up to your outermost hole of this RounTrio on the left. Now you're set up to start adding your 19 beads again. So that's what you do with this section. So go ahead and finish that part off, and then I will meet you back and I will show you if you would like to add a veil to this. I will show you that option. In this particular one, I'm probably not going to add the veil, so I'll show you how to do it, but then I'll take it back out again. And then I'll show you the differences, because my first one, my pink one, I did put the veil in. So I'll show you how to add it on the next step, and I'll see you back in just a second. Okay, so I'm coming down to adding my last 8 and 15 in my last petal. And just like the very beginning, make sure you go through that last bead plus that first seed bead just before the RounTrio. And then if you can, get through the RounTrio as well. And once you get that last set of beads, and it gets stuck. There it goes. Once you get that last set of beads on there, then you pretty much have a completed pendant. Now, I would suggest to go ahead and tie off everything right now. whether you're going to add the bail or not. I'm going to end up stringing my pendant through one of the 8-O's, either on the back petals or I might do the front petal. I haven't made up my mind yet on when I want to do that. But even if you are going to watch the next clip on how to add the bail, I would suggest to go ahead and tie off. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and go through the 3 11-O's that are sitting here, and then proceed through those 15s that are sitting there also on the other side. Make sure I'm trying to get myself in focus before I go back through the next 11-O's. I'm going to tie a knot there. So just go underneath the threads that are sitting there. Just go underneath the threads. Make yourself a little loop. And go through that loop with your needle. Pull the loop down in between the 2 beads. A little bit smaller, so it's a little bit easier to go through it a second time. Oops. As I hit everything. Go through that loop the second time. And then just pull slightly until you know that your knot is in between the 15 and the 11-O sitting there. Then proceed through your 11s. And then here it's kind of up to you. You can go ahead and I'll go through all 3 11s, not just 2. Here we go. Go through 3 11s. What I'm going to end up doing is going through the center hole down here. And then I'm going to make another knot on the other side with one of these threads. Then after that, I'm probably going to tie off or burn off. I'm tying off right now, but I'm going to burn it down after that. So I'm going to go through those, underneath those threads, make my loop, make sure it's kind of close to the product, go through the loop a second time, and then pull tight. And then I'm going to go through, I'm just going to go through one of those seed beads, or maybe 2. Okay, I went through 2, so I'm just going to sit in right there. And then that's where I will burn down my thread with the thread burner. About a 1/4 to 1/8 of an inch is what you're looking for. And then you just make a little ball of thread down close to the product, making sure that you're not going through anything else. And so now my little pendant is complete. Now you can kind of see here on the front, it needs to be kind of finagled a little bit to get it to pop out a little bit. And then now you have a complete little sunflower. So like I said, if you're looking for the bail portion, watch this next section. If you're just going to string it on like I'm going to end up doing, then skip the next section and go to the final section, and I'll show you that pattern of what I'm going to do for the necklace. Okay, so if you're going to add the bail, one of these type of bails here, if you're going to add one of these, notice how the hole of the bail is basically facing you, and it's not like this. So you see the hole like that. So in order to get that type of a bail into our product, we have to go through the bail a couple of times. I'll explain. So I have the back of my pendant facing upwards. What you need to do is peel back the petals from the back of the pendant to where you can get to those 3 seed beads where we added that second round of the RounTrios. So you want to go through those, you want to see those 3 seed beads sitting there. Plus, if you decided to do the 15s right there, then those would be sitting there too. What you'll end up doing is at the end of a new strand of thread, I put a stop thread or a stop bead. I just used another 8/0 of a different color so I know where it's at. And what you'll end up doing is just going through those first two 11s like that. And then pull this down. I'm actually going to hold that stop bead off to the back a little bit so it's not completely up to my product so I can see where it's at, because I'm going to end up taking this out. I'm not going to use this bail. I don't have an antique copper, or what color am I using? Antique brass is what I'm using. But I don't have an antique brass color of this bail here at the house, so I'm going to do it a different way for you. So now you want to add 5 of your 15s. Doesn't matter which color, I'm just going to choose color number 1. Pick up your bail, just go through the loop of the bail. And what you want to do is round through that same 11-0 that you're coming out of right now. So that same 11-0, and then round through that. When you pull everything to the product, your bail is now sitting there with a loop of seed beads around it. Just like that. Now, I would go through those seed beads at least twice more. At least twice more, if you can. Now, with it being 15s, sometimes the 15s get really, really tight. So try to go through twice more. If you have to move from a size 11 needle to a size 12, perfectly fine to do that, to do this portion. But that's where the bail is going to be where you're going to get a lot of wear and tear. So you want to make sure that you have plenty of thread through there, so your bail's not rubbing up against the thread per se, as far as you want it to be in between the beads down there. But you still want to have enough thread so that way if it gets loose for any reason, it won't fray the thread quickly, at least. So now we need to try to get another round through this. So after you go through that a couple of times, you'll still be coming out of that 11-0, that second of 11-0. So continue through that third 11-0. And depending on what you ended up doing, if your 15s are sitting there, then you'll need to continue through the 15s. If they're not, you'll have to continue through the round trio one more time, depending on what you decided to do in that step. I'm getting my thread wrapped around the bagel. There we go. So then proceed through the 15s, and then you'll need to come out of the second 11-0 again on the left-hand side of this grouping. So that's the first 11-0. And you want to come out that second 11-0 there. And then this is where you're going to add 5 more of your 15s. 3, 4, and 5. Now you're coming out towards the back of your product. So go ahead and hook on to your bail and going towards the front. So you're going from the back of the bail to the front. And then when you do that, you want to circle around your 11-0, that middle 11-0, going towards the back again like this. And then that brings 5 more seed beads sitting there on the back to where your bail can sit in between, like that. So there again, you want to go through that a couple more times. And then after that, all you have to do is just tie off. So whatever you're comfortable with doing, so that's the way it would look if you decided to do a bail. But of course, like I said, I don't have the antique brass here at the house, so I'm going to take this bail out, and you can follow me to the next portion, and I will show you the pattern that I'm going to use for the necklace portion. Okay, so now on to the necklace portion. So for the necklace portion, I'm using all the different colors of the seed beads, just in a pattern. You don't have to do this pattern. It's just what I decided to do. So if you like to do the pattern, then go ahead and follow along. So the pattern that I started off with was starting off with an 8-0, your second color of your 15, your first color of your 11, second color of your 11, 3 of your third color of 11s, 3 of your first color of 15s, then 3 of your third color of 11s, 1 of your second color 11, 1 of your first color 11, 1 of your second color of 15s, and then another 8. And then I just copied this back and forth. Now the next bead that I would add would be actually the 15. So your 8s are kind of in between. And then once you get all that strung on, it'll look something similar to that. So you only have 1 8 in between everything. So once you have a total of 11 8-0s on your wire that you're using, then this is when we're going to add our pendant in if you decide to do it this way. We will start off with a similar pattern. So we're going to pick up one of the 15s, the second color of 15, one of the first 11, one of the second 11, 3 of the third 11, 1 of the first 15. Then we're going to decide which 8-0 that we want to go through. I went ahead and decided to go through one of the front loops, one of the front petals. So I'm just going to go straight through that. Actually, I want to go this direction. Really doesn't matter as long as your clasp gets put on the correct way. So I'm going to go in that direction. And then we're going to finish out this little pattern. So which was 115 of the first and 3 of the third 11-0, 1 of the second 11-0, 1 of the first 11-0, 1 of the second 15, and then finish it out with an 8. And then I'll pull this down so you can see how that looks. And then now, instead of having the 3 15s of your first color, you now have 1 15, an 8, and a 15. And then that way it just sits together like that. So now you just need to continue on and get 10 more of your 8-0s on the last side. Once you get that done, then I will briefly show you how to finish off your cable, your beading cable, if you're not familiar with that part. All right, so for those that are not familiar on how to use their crimp tubes and items like that, then I will show you quickly how to do that. So I've got everything strung on. You can pretty much see everything in the field of view, but I've got all my beads strung on and everything. I went ahead and I cut off the excess from the end of the spool. I always string on everything while the cable is on the spool and then decide how much I need extra to cut off in order to crimp and things like that. I just feel like I can use a little bit less when I do it that way. So now we're going to add our clasp. I'm doing the S-hook clasp only because that's what I had here at the house, and it's the antique brass color. And I've got some wire guards, got a jump ring to help put this portion, the S portion of the clasp, onto the wire guard, but then the loop portion of the clasp I'm going to string directly onto the wire guard. So with that being the case, I'm going to do that first. What we do need to do first is add our crimp tube on first. So that way we can crimp everything at the end. So put your crimp tube on first. On this part, if you're using the S-hook, just like I am, I'm going through one channel of the wire guard, and then I wrap around and go through the other channel of the wire guard, and then let that sit there where the wire is in the little canal of the wire guard. Then before I move on, I'm going to pick up one side of the hook portion of the S-hook clasp, and then I'm going to go back through that crimp tube again. Now in this case, I'm going to try to go back through. I know the wire will fit back through the 8s again. I don't think you're going to get back through the 15. Sometimes, depending on what size wire you're using, you might be able to do that, but I know for sure I'm not going to be able to get through the 15s. I've already tried it a couple of times and it never worked. So try to keep your wire in even, so you don't want to twist it at all. Like this is twisted. So this way is not twisted, because you want to make sure that your shorter wire stays on the same side in order to get a good crimp. So to do that, you want to try to get your crimp up to your wire guard, kind of close, but not too close to where it still has a little bit of wiggle room to move around and everything. Holding on, it's maybe kind of hard to finagle sometimes, so just take your time with it. Try again if it works, if it's not working out the first time. So hold on to everything. And then I am just using my fingernail to push the crimp tube up close to the wire guard. And then I'm going to take my chain nose pliers and I'm just going to do a flat crimp, which that just means put the crimp in between the pliers and squish really hard. And it crimps just like that. So if you like to, you can always use crimp covers if you want to. There's other different special type pliers that you can always purchase if you want to. Also to make different types of crimps and everything. There's all sorts of different products out there. So now we just take our pliers, or our cutters, excuse me, our wire cutters, and then just cut as close to the 8/0 as you can. And then put that off to the side. And now you have a good crimp. I always double check my crimps and tug on it a little bit and make sure nothing's moving. I usually do that before I cut. I forgot to do that. So now I will show you real quick on how to do the other side. So all I did is just move all my beads down to this side. So I have this length over here. I'm taking my bead stopper off. I don't need that anymore. And then this side, we do something similar. Add your crimp tube first. I have done it to where I forgot to add the crimp tube before and then had to take it all out because there was nothing to crimp. Then add your wire guard. And then this side, we're going to put a jump ring on for the S hook. I'm not going to put this directly onto the wire guard. So this one's handled a little bit differently. Go down the other side of the wire guard. If you can, immediately go into your crimp tube and your 8/0. And then try to keep your wire on the same side. Like I'm going down the right hand side of the wire guard, so I'm trying to keep the shorter side of the wire on the right side of everything. Now I'm pulling down a little bit tight, or you can actually crimp. I like to try to wind this up a little bit. And in doing so, if you're winding, it will, I just lost my grips. That's okay. I'll fix it. When you wind it up like this a little bit, it makes it to where everything kind of loosens up down on your working product. So that way it's not too tight and things can kind of move just ever so slightly. Okay, so now we're fixed again. So now I'm just tugging on the wire on the shorter portion of it. So the end of the wire, until I get that crimp and the wire guard down where I'd like it. And then I am moving, still kind of finagling with it, still kind of learning how to do this. I'm getting a little bit better at it. That's all you can do, is practice makes perfect. So now I've got everything kind of moved down out of the way. So I'm taking my pliers and squishing. And then do your double check. Make sure everything's fine. See, I left a little extra than I would like to right there. So that one's actually not the best of crimps, but that's okay. Like I said, I'm still learning, so we're getting there. So there's that. And then it is good on there because you tug on it a little bit just to do a double check and make sure. So come back in here with your cutters, cut in close to the 8/0 there. And then now we just need to add our other half of the clasp. So open up your jump ring, twisting it open like that, pick up your clasp, attach it to the wire guard, then close it back up. And now your necklace is complete. Thank you so much for watching my Thoughts of Spring set, the necklace version. So this is how it ended up turning out. So stay tuned for the earrings and for a ring as well, if they haven't already made it out, because the set includes all three of these. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. That way you will be notified whenever Potomac Beads comes out with new videos. Also, if you choose to do different colorways than either the yellow or the pink one that I did, I'd love to see different pictures of that in the Facebook page for Potomac Beads. So please post those as well. So stay tuned for the next video because I know it'll be a good one.